You wake up one morning and feel a strange weight on your chest. Not the kind that comes from grief, nor the kind that fear brings. It's quieter than that, softer. It hides behind the ordinary rhythm of your thoughts. You can't name it, yet it follows you through every gesture, every silence, every half-remembered dream. It's not darkness exactly, but something that waits inside the dark, whispering that you've forgotten something essential. You've tried to escape it, haven't you? Through work, through distraction, through the constant hum of voices that promise clarity. You keep chasing light, hoping it will wash away whatever lingers behind you. But the more you chase it, the longer your shadow grows. And at some point, you begin to wonder if the light you're searching for is not out there at all, but hidden behind what you've refused to see. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your reflection in unlit water. It shows the shape of what you once abandoned, what you couldn't bear to love, what you decided was unworthy of you. It lives in the corners of your words, in the tone you use when you're hurt, in the dreams that return each time you think you've moved on. It doesn't haunt you because it's cruel. It calls to you because it remembers. Some nights, when silence grows thick enough, you can almost hear it breathe. It's the sigh of your forgotten self, the voice that speaks without language, the memory of your own wholeness. It doesn't demand confession or correction. It only asks you to stop running, to turn around, to look. But you don't, not yet, because the shadow still frightens you. It reminds you of every feeling you buried, every impulse you denied, every truth that once burned too brightly to hold. You think it's darkness. Yet, what if it's the only part of you that can lead you back to the light? You stand there, between the glow and the unknown, between what you show and what you hide. And in that stillness, something ancient begins to stir. A question that's not quite a question, but more like a memory waking up inside you. What if the shadow isn't dark, but it's you who don't see the light behind it? You start to sense that the shadow isn't some foreign creature crawling beneath your skin. It's you unseen. It's the unspoken thought behind your words, the tension in your shoulders when someone gets too close. It's the child that once cried for love and learned to hide instead. And so it stayed there, waiting, collecting fragments of everything you couldn't face. Every fear, every shame, every spark of potential you thought the world wouldn't accept. It's all there, folded in quiet patience, waiting for your courage to return. Jung called it the meeting with the unconscious, though that phrase sounds too clinical for the truth of it. The truth feels like standing in front of a mirror that reflects more than your face. It shows what you've become by forgetting. It shows the masks that served you, and the eyes behind them that still ache for honesty. When you meet your shadow, you don't just meet what's wrong with you. You meet the hidden beauty that never had permission to exist. Every person carries a world behind their eyelids, and that world has weather. Some carry storms, some carry deserts. But the shadow is not the weather itself, it's the sky that holds it all. The infinite canvas on which every light and darkness moves. When you close your eyes and look inward, you might find it not as a void, but as a vast field, humming with the pulse of forgotten life. It is terrifying only because it is immense. The more you resist it, the more it pursues you. Not as punishment, but as invitation. Life conspires to bring the unconscious to the surface. It uses conflict, heartbreak, failure, to tear open the places where light can enter. You think the universe is cruel, but maybe it's just committed to your wholeness. And so every shadow in your path becomes a message from your deeper self, whispering, "Don't look away." Light and shadow are not opposites. They are lovers who dance around one another, exchanging form. Without shadow, light is sterile. Without light, shadow is blind. Together, they create depth, contour, the shape of meaning itself. What you call darkness is only the place where light hasn't reached yet. And sometimes that darkness is the womb of your next transformation. You've been taught to fear your contradictions, to polish your virtues and hide your flaws. But the psyche doesn't work that way. It's not a battlefield, it's an ecosystem. The wild things inside you don't need to be tamed, they need to be understood. Integration is not the death of the shadow. It's the embrace that turns it into an ally. The lion becomes your guardian once you stop running from its roar. The alchemists knew this secret long before psychology gave it a name. They spoke of turning lead into gold, not as a craft of metal, but of soul. The lead was the shadow, heavy and unrefined. The gold was consciousness, born from endurance, from love that dared to include what was once rejected. Every descent into darkness carried the promise of illumination. Every wound hid a seed of radiance. And so, to face your shadow is not to fight it. It's to sit with it, to listen to its language, to feel where it lives in your body, in your breath, in your choices. It's to realize that the monster under your bed has been guarding the treasure all along. The fear dissolves when you see its face clearly and recognize your own reflection staring back. The light behind the shadow is not something you find. It's something you remember. It was never gone. It was only obscured by the walls you built to survive. But now, those walls are too small for who you're becoming. You feel them cracking, and through the cracks, a quiet brilliance begins to seep in. It doesn't shout. It doesn't burn. It just glows softly, patiently, waiting for you to step through. And so you do. You take one slow breath, and you begin to see. The night around you doesn't disappear. It changes. The trees that frightened you now shimmer with hidden detail. The path that seemed lost now reveals itself in silver. You realize the shadow was never dark. You just hadn't yet opened your eyes to the light behind it. You walk into yourself as one might walk into a forest at dusk. The light fades behind you, and the world begins to blur at its edges. Sounds shift. The air thickens. Every step echoes in a language you cannot yet understand. You feel both drawn and afraid, sensing that something here has been waiting for you a long time. There is no map for this terrain, only intuition and breath. You move forward because something deeper than thought whispers that you must. At first you see nothing but silhouettes. Your mind projects familiar fears onto the trees, memories of failure, shame, guilt. They stand like tall figures guarding a forgotten temple. You want to run back to the safety of the known, but that world feels hollow now. The comfort of denial no longer comforts you. You realize that the forest is not trapping you. It is calling you to stop pretending, to stop negotiating with the truth of who you are. Each sound seems alive. The wind hums through the branches like an old song. The ground murmurs beneath your feet, carrying stories older than speech. You start to understand that this descent is not punishment, it is remembrance. You are not entering darkness, you are entering depth. The forest does not hide you from the light, it hides you from the noise that once drowned it out. Then comes the first encounter, a flicker of movement beside the path. You catch a glimpse of something, a shadow of your own outline, stepping slightly ahead, mirroring your every move. It does not threaten, it waits. You try to ignore it, to look away, but it remains. The more you resist, the clearer it becomes. Its eyes are empty, yet full, reflecting not malice but recognition. And in that moment your pulse slows. You realize you are meeting the part of you that has never been seen. The air grows colder. You kneel without knowing why. The shadow kneels too. Between you, a small flame appears, flickering on the forest floor. It is weak, but real. You sense that if you breathe too quickly, it might vanish. So you stay still. You look. The flame dances, lighting both faces, yours and the shadows, and for the first time you see that they share the same skin, the same scars, the same longing. The only difference is that one has lived in light, and the other has carried all that light refused. Something in you breaks, not from pain, but from relief. You have been split for so long. Now the halves are touching again. You understand that this descent is not a fall, it is a reunion. The shadow never chased you, it waited, patiently, knowing you would eventually tire of your own illusions. And as the night settles deeper around you, you realize this is only the beginning. The true journey starts where resistance ends. You wake inside a dream that feels older than memory. The forest has become still, almost sacred, and somewhere ahead you see a clearing washed in pale light. In its center stands a pool so calm that even the wind dares not touch it. You walk closer, drawn by something that feels both magnetic and merciful. The air smells of rain and iron. It feels like standing at the edge of your own consciousness, where everything you've denied begins to shimmer just beneath the surface. You kneel beside the water and look in. At first you see your reflection, familiar and distant, shaped by all the stories you've told about who you are. But as the ripples settle, the image begins to shift. You see eyes that remember everything you've tried to forget. Behind them, faces appear and dissolve. The child who learned silence to survive, the lover who gave too much, the friend who betrayed, the stranger who dreamed of freedom. Each one looks back at you, waiting to be acknowledged. The mirror of the psyche shows no mercy, but it offers truth. You begin to understand that the shadow is not a collection of sins or flaws. It is a mirror made of everything that could not fit into your idea of goodness. Every time you said, "Not me," it added another layer to the reflection. And now, standing before it, you feel the weight of that denial softening. You realize that even your mistakes have been expressions of a deeper longing for wholeness. You reach your hand into the water. It feels cold, almost electric. The reflection wavers, and for a moment you see light beneath the surface, faint but steady, like a hidden sun waiting to rise. You feel it travel up your arm and settle in your chest. It is not blinding. It is gentle. The light does not come from outside. It was always beneath the shadow, waiting for you to look deep enough to find it. Then you remember how much energy you have spent maintaining the mask, how exhausting it is to keep pretending that you are only what the world approves of. The moment you see the full reflection, you stop fighting yourself. You feel the first quiet wave of peace, the kind that doesn't need explanation. The mirror is no longer an enemy. It becomes a teacher, and as you rise, you notice that the pool reflects not just your face, but the sky above, a perfect balance of darkness and dawn. You walk away knowing something has changed. You are no longer afraid of what you see. The light is still faint, but it is there, steady beneath the surface, waiting to grow each time you choose honesty over illusion. You understand now that the mirror is not a punishment, but a portal. And what it shows is not darkness, but the forgotten light of your own becoming. The night deepens as you move beyond the clearing. The air grows warmer, pulsing with an unseen rhythm. Ahead, you see flickers of light weaving between the trees. They move like whispers, forming a circle that glows faintly against the dark. As you step closer, you find a fire burning at the center, neither wild nor tame, rising and folding into itself like a living heart. You feel its heat before you feel its meaning. The flame speaks without words, and every breath you take begins to mirror its dance. You sit before it, silent. For a moment, it feels as if the fire is studying you. It knows the weight you carry, the hidden resentments, the quiet hungers. You think of all the times you tried to extinguish your own intensity, to appear calm, controlled, harmless. But here, before this ancient flame, that facade begins to melt. You remember that your passion is not sin, your anger is not corruption, your desire is not danger. They are energies of transformation, waiting to be transmuted rather than denied. The fire is not cruel. It burns only what is false. You watch the sparks rise, and each one feels like a fragment of the life you tried to abandon. Ambition, lust, power, creativity, fear. Every ember returns to the same flame, purified, reclaimed. You begin to see that the shadow is not darkness but unrefined fire. The heat you feared was not destruction but alchemy. The parts of you buried were never meant to die. They were meant to be transformed by this very heat. You reach your hands toward the blaze, and the warmth wraps around you like a memory of divine origin. You remember the first time you felt wonder, the first time you trusted your instincts, the first time you created something out of nothing. These moments return, glowing like coals beneath your ribs. You understand that creation and destruction are two breaths of the same fire, and that every ending you mourned was only the beginning of another form. The flames rise higher, revealing faces within them. They are the archetypes of your own becoming. The warrior who fights not to dominate but to protect. The lover who gives without losing. The sage who speaks truth even when trembling. They are not separate beings but facets of your inner world, all waiting to be remembered. The fire shows you that you have never been divided, only unlit. When the light begins to dim, you feel changed. The ash beneath your feet is warm, not dead. The forest around you hums softly, its shadows now tinged with gold. You stand and take a deep breath, feeling the heat still alive inside your chest. It is no longer the fire of fear, but of life. And as you step away, you know that everything you once called darkness was only light in disguise, waiting for your courage to face the flame. The air shifts again, cooler now, carrying the scent of water and stone. You follow the sound, a soft murmur growing louder as you move through the trees. The ground becomes damp, and soon you stand at the edge of a river, flowing beneath the moonlight. Its surface glimmers with silver threads, bending around rocks like thoughts around memories. The current moves slowly at first, then deepens into quiet strength, as if carrying stories too ancient for words. You kneel and watch the water pass. It seems endless, yet never the same. You realize how much of your life has been shaped by this unseen current, the river of the unconscious that runs through every human soul. It carries everything you have ever felt or forgotten, the laughter that once echoed through your childhood, the pain you hid behind ambition, the tenderness you disguised as indifference. It all flows here, merging into a greater rhythm that connects every life to something infinite. You touch the water, and it accepts you without judgment. The reflection trembles, showing both your face and the stars above it. For the first time, you sense that you are not separate from what you seek. The river does not ask you to choose between light and dark. It simply moves, embracing both. You begin to understand that healing is not about cleansing yourself of shadow, but allowing the shadow to flow back into wholeness. The psyche does not need perfection. It needs movement. You slip your hands deeper, feeling the chill reach your bones. For a moment, fear rises. You imagine being swept away, dissolved, erased. But then the current softens, holding you instead of taking you. You see how much of your suffering has come from clinging, from resisting the natural flow of becoming. Life does not demand control. It asks for trust. Like the river, it moves toward the sea whether you fight or surrender. The difference is how much peace you allow along the way. You close your eyes and let your breath match the current. Each inhale draws in what you once rejected. Each exhale releases the masks you no longer need. Slowly, you feel your edges blur. You are not standing beside the river anymore. You are part of it, carried gently towards something vast and luminous. You realize that the light behind the shadow was never lost. It was always reflected in this movement, the endless cycle of descent and return, of drowning and emerging renewed. When you open your eyes again, the moon has climbed higher, casting a long silver path across the water. You step into it, one foot, then another, feeling the current pull you closer to its song. You don't walk away from the river. You become it, and in its rhythm, you hear the voice of the self whispering the oldest truth. Nothing in you was ever separate. Everything you feared to face was already on its way home. Dawn begins to bloom faintly behind the horizon. The forest that once seemed endless now opens into a wide clearing. At its center stands a temple carved from stone and time, ancient yet alive, breathing through cracks of light that spill from its walls. You approach slowly, the ground beneath you soft with moss and memory. Every step feels deliberate, as if guided by something that has been calling you here since the beginning. The air hums with silence, the kind that feels sacred, not empty. You cross the threshold, and the world narrows to breath and heartbeat. The space inside glows with faint gold, illuminating the symbols carved along the walls. Circles, serpents, suns, eyes half closed in knowing. You recognize them though you've never seen them before. They speak in the language of the soul, a language you are only now remembering. Each image mirrors a stage of your journey: descent, reflection, fire, flow. You begin to see that these weren't steps into chaos. They were initiations. At the center of the temple lies an altar made of black stone. Upon it rests a single mirror, cracked but radiant. You hesitate before it, feeling a familiar tension rise within. The urge to turn away, to protect what little certainty remains. But you've come too far to hide again. You walk closer, and the mirror begins to shimmer. You expect to see the old reflection, the same face that has followed you through the forest, but something shifts. The cracks in the glass are filled with light, not wounds, but veins of gold. You look into the mirror, and for the first time, you see everything at once. The child, the lover, the warrior, the seeker. The moments you were ashamed of, the dreams you abandoned, the tenderness you tried to erase. All of them stand beside you, not as ghosts, but as guardians. The temple is full now. You feel the presence of every version of yourself returning home. The shadow bows its head, and so do you. The division dissolves like mist. You realize that the shadow never wanted to destroy you. It wanted to bring you here, to remember that you are the altar, and the light behind it is your own soul. You place your hand upon the mirror, and warmth floods through you. The walls pulse softly, alive with breath. You feel the temple expand beyond stone, beyond time, until it fills everything. The light grows, not from above, but from within, and suddenly the word darkness loses its meaning. There is no dark, no light, only wholeness, only the quiet rhythm of something vast and benevolent moving through you. You understand that illumination is not escape, but inclusion. When you step back, the mirror no longer reflects. It radiates. The temple is no longer separate from the forest, the river, or the fire. They were never separate from you. You smile without knowing it, feeling the stillness that only truth can bring. This place is not the end of the journey. It is the heart of it, and as the first rays of dawn spill through the doorway, you realize the light behind the shadow has always been this, your own awakening sight. You step outside the temple, and the world has changed. The same forest that once loomed with mystery now breathes with quiet understanding. Every leaf glows softly, as if remembering its connection to the sun. The air feels lighter, the wind familiar, like the voice of an old friend. You realize the journey was never about reaching the light, but about learning to carry it. The forest does not vanish. It transforms with your perception. You are still within it, but now it feels like home. You walk slowly, not rushing to leave. Each step presses gently into the earth. Each sound feels deliberate. The shadow moves beside you still, but it no longer follows from behind. It walks with you, calm and unthreatening, like a companion who finally found its name. You see now that it was never separate from your steps. It was the rhythm beneath them, the pulse that gave meaning to movement. To live without the shadow would be to live without depth, without contrast, without truth. The river appears in the distance, winding through the trees like a silver thread. You walk toward it, drawn not by longing but by gratitude. When you reach the shore, the water greets you like an old teacher. You see your reflection again, but this time the face looking back is whole. There are no fractures between who you were and who you are becoming. The same eyes that once searched for meaning now see it everywhere, even in the smallest ripple. The light behind the shadow is no longer hidden. It flows freely, reflected in every surface. As you stand there, you begin to sense the vast network of life surrounding you. Every sound, every color, every breath feels connected by an invisible thread. The light you found within your darkness is the same light moving through all things. You realize that the work of individuation is not isolation, but participation. To awaken is to see yourself in everything, to know that the divine hides as much in your imperfections as in your strengths. The shadow was never the obstacle. It was the doorway. The sun rises fully now, spilling gold across the river. You watch as the light touches the trees, the water, your skin. It does not blind. It reveals. You understand that this is what Jung meant when he spoke of the self, the union that lives beyond all opposites. You are not light or dark. You are the meeting point where both dissolve. The shadow is still here, quiet and radiant, no longer a wound but a source of wisdom. You take a slow breath. The forest exhales with you. The journey feels complete, yet endless. You realize that integration is not a destination, but a rhythm. Every day will ask you to remember this light, to carry it into the noise, the world, the others. And when you forget, the shadow will return, not to punish, but to remind. Its voice will be softer now, almost loving, saying, "The light was never gone. You simply closed your eyes." The river fades into mist as you begin to walk again. The forest dissolves around you, not disappearing but blending into a vast field of light. There is no path now, no direction, only presence. You feel your breath slow, your heartbeat echo in rhythm with something immense and invisible. The boundary between inner and outer thins until you can no longer tell which one you are standing in. The journey that began in darkness is now a quiet radiance unfolding from within. You remember the forest, the mirror, the fire, the river, the temple. They were never separate places, but phases of one great transformation. Each was a reflection of the psyche, revealing itself to itself. You realize that the shadow, too, was never apart. It was the dark side of your own light, the echo of a truth too bright to face before you were ready. You had to walk through the night to learn the language of dawn. The path was never punishment. It was grace disguised as struggle. Light rises softly around you, not as sunlight, but as awareness. It fills your chest, your voice, your silence. You feel yourself dissolve into its rhythm. There is no fear now, only the sense that you are returning to something that has always known your name. You see the faces of your forgotten selves merging into one. The child, the wanderer, the dreamer, the seeker. They no longer compete for space. They become a single gaze, calm and clear. This is what wholeness feels like. Not perfection, but peace. The light moves through you like breath, expanding beyond the body. You feel it flow outward, touching the unseen hearts around you. Every life, every soul, each carrying its own shadow and flame. You understand that your healing is not yours alone. The more you awaken, the more the world awakens through you. The boundaries that once defined you begin to soften. The light does not belong to you. It moves through you, just as the river moves through the earth. You are both vessel and source, student and teacher, shadow and illumination. A deep silence follows, rich and alive. You realize that the shadow was never dark. It was a veil, thin and necessary, so that your eyes could adjust to eternity. You had to learn to see gently, to bear the brilliance of your own being without turning away. The shadow protected you until you were strong enough to stand in the full light. Now you stand here, not as two halves finally reconciled, but as one luminous presence breathing between heaven and earth. You do not need to reach the light anymore. You are it, remembering itself. You sit quietly as the light settles around you, neither bright nor dim, simply whole. The forest hums with life again, the river murmurs somewhere in the distance, and you realize you never truly left. Everything you met was inside you all along. The temple, the mirror, the shadow, the flame. They were symbols of your own becoming. You are back where you began, but nothing is the same. The air feels softer now, the silence deeper. You are not searching anymore. You are listening. You close your eyes and sense the slow rhythm of your breath. Inhale, exhale, the gentle dance between what enters and what leaves. This, too, is the meeting of light and shadow. The inhale gathers the unknown. The exhale releases it into understanding. You feel how every heartbeat carries the story of integration. The self is not a fortress. It is a rhythm, a conversation between opposites that never ends. And in that endless exchange, peace arises, not from control, but from surrender. When you open your eyes, you see the world with a new softness. The faces you meet will still carry shadows, and so will you. But now you know what they mean. You no longer fear the darkness in others, for you have seen the light behind your own. Compassion becomes your new perception, not as virtue, but as truth. To love is to recognize the light still hidden, to see beyond the masks, to remember that everyone is walking through their own forest, searching for their own dawn. The journey does not end here. It continues in the small moments, when you speak with honesty, when you listen without defense, when you forgive the self you once despised. Each act becomes a quiet prayer, each breath a spark of consciousness returning to its source. You understand now that enlightenment is not escape, but intimacy. It is being fully here, within shadow and light, knowing both are faces of the same mystery. The task was never to destroy the dark, but to see through it. You stand once more, feeling the ground beneath your feet, solid yet alive. The day unfolds slowly, and you walk into it with the quiet confidence of someone who has seen the unseen. The shadow still moves beside you, soft and faithful. The light shines not ahead, but through. You take one last breath before stepping forward, and in that stillness between breaths, everything becomes clear. The shadow was never dark. You just had not yet turned to face the light behind it,